The documentary Union, which premiered at this year's Sundance Film Festival, highlights the fascinating story about a group of Amazon workers as they attempt to unionize. At the center of the documentary is Chris Smalls, a former worker in an Amazon fulfillment center in Long Island, who was fired in 2020 after organizing a walkout of employees to protest what he said was a lack of safety protocols around COVID-19. He forms a group of both current and former Amazon employees called the Amazon Labor Union, or ALU. They set up a tent outside of the Amazon warehouse where they pass out free food as well as provide information about their efforts to unionize. This sets up what's been described as a David and Goliath situation. On the one end, you have the organizers who are trying to create this union for the Amazon workers. On the other end, you have the corporation that is Amazon that spends millions of dollars to bring people in and try to bust this union. The directors of the documentary, Stephen Meng and Brett Story, opt for a cinema verite style. With this film, you are a fly on the wall. There's no narration, there's no talking heads. It doesn't hold your hand and tell you all of the context you need to know. You have to kind of gather these bits of information as the story flows along. For example, early on in the documentary, there's a scene where the people with the ALU are trying to get support from some larger unions, and the other unions don't want to support their efforts. Basically, they tell them that they think their methods are too unconventional and they don't want to work with them. As I'm watching this, I'm thinking, well, what's so unconventional about it? Well, then later on in the documentary, we see that in addition to them giving free food to the Amazon workers, they're also giving out free weed. The filmmakers choose not to frame their subjects either with any kind of judgment or prop them up as saints either. We see them fight amongst themselves. We see a woman end up leaving the union because of disagreements. And we also see them just get tired and burn out. But I will say, as the movie was going along, I did really feel like I was missing something on the screen. I kept thinking back to a documentary that covered some similar subject matter called American Factory. This came out in 2019 and also premiered at Sundance. With American Factory, they had very hands-on access where they could film inside of the factory that was the subject of that documentary. Whereas with Union, there is very little footage at all that's actually filmed inside of the Amazon factory. The footage that we do see in this documentary is filmed covertly from the Amazon workers' phones. Now, I acknowledge that this part is of no fault to the filmmakers. Obviously, getting permission to film inside of the Amazon factory was not on the table here. But what results is a documentary where a big portion of it is people just kind of chilling out in a parking lot or meeting up over Zoom, and the scope of the documentary feels at times a bit constrained. But ultimately, it's the subject matter that makes this documentary so compelling, because it does highlight a history-making event. For anyone who's interested in labor organizing, Union is a must-watch. I give major props to the programmers at Sundance for including this film in their lineup, as it does provide a critical eye to a company that has an increasingly large footprint in the movie business. But in the end, this isn't a documentary about Amazon. It's a documentary about how hard it is for working class people to even have a seat at the table to begin to negotiate with their employers. Union makes a point to showcase just how hard that is, and even when there is a victory, it's kind of a one step forward, two steps back sort of situation. As more workers across the United States rally around efforts to unionize, I hope this documentary continues to find its audience, whether it's in the festival circuit or in theaters or on streaming, but probably not Prime Video. I give it 4 out of 5 stars.